Well, hello again. It's Richard Malcolm, January the 10th, another Sunday, sharing again with you. Um, Today, I kind of like to reminisce a little bit as well as talk a little bit about some of this end time stuff that I referred to earlier. I was uh, busy with a grandson the other day, and we were harvesting a pig, and it was in the scalding tank, the old fashioned way, when my brother Larry phoned. And he had sent me money to buy a hat and a maple leaf hat, being a diehard, since I was a little boy. And anyway, watched the game last night. The Leafs won. Of course, they were playing against each other, but still, a win's a win. The exhibition before the season starts. So he kind of laughed. I told him I was going to get a trapper hat, and he never heard of such a thing. So he said, well, next time you have a little bit of a talk, you can wear it and I can have a look at it. So here it is, Larry. Here's the hat that you bought me. Thank you very much for a Merry Christmas. So anyway, speaking of pigs, I recall when I was a young boy, we used to spend lots of time, summers, back in Slate Falls. And one of the things that I recall is Aunt Hulda and Uncle Lloyd had pigs there that they used to harvest, and they used to scald them the old-fashioned way as well. And I recall one time Aunt Hulda had a bunch of these little piglets, and they were in the oven, and they had a cook wood stove, those old kinds, And she had it on low heat, so it's kind of like an incubator to keep them warm, because little piglets, when they're first born, it takes a few days before they can even get their own heat going. And so that's why we have heat lamps and stuff. But she had the cookwood stove. That was kind of neat. The other thing I really liked was we'd go over to Aunt Hollis there, and she'd have this homemade bread, and then the wild blueberries, and boil them up, and we'd get the homemade bread, and it was just soft and really tasty. And we dip it in the blueberries, and really nice memories there. The other thing I enjoyed when I was in Slate Falls as a little boy, we'd go fishing for brook trout. And so we go down to the lower place. My dad used to say where he was raised, and there wasn't much left there, just a foundation sort of thing. And so you had to dig these worms, and they had to be real small, because if you're going for brook trout, well, they're quite small to begin with, by and large. So you'd get really, really small worms. And then when you get enough of them, of course, Larry and I, we'd put them in our pockets, and then you'd take a stick, and you'd Dad would give us a stick and put a line on it and a real small hook, and away we'd go. Well, we weren't worried about bears or cougars, or we'd see the odd porcupine, and it was kind of neat getting into the bush. You just kept going up the creeks, and real nice beaver dams, and in the creeks, if you even just cast a shadow, well, the trout would take right off. And so you had to be really cagey to try and catch these, and you kind of lean over a log or whatever in the creek. And so you'd catch these, and then you'd get another stick that had a V in it, and then you'd start stringing your fish on it, and then you'd bring it home. Lots of wonderful memories as a little boy growing up back in Slate Falls. A number of years ago, I went to Belleville to visit, quite a few years ago. My mom was still alive then. And Larry says, okay, let's go out on Lake Ontario and catch some salmon. So we were out there quite a long time, 4 or 5 hours, whatever it was. And we caught a 30-pounder and a few others, about four of them, quite nice. But they had this booklet then as saying how much you can eat given the toxicity and stuff of the fish, with what was happening in the lakes and all the different rivers and stuff. So the pristine creeks and lakes and stuff I knew as a boy in my lifetime had started to deteriorate with what was going on in the world. And of course, you see that in the oceans too. The coral reefs were dying out, and the temperatures kind of rising a little bit, and all this extra carbon dioxide that Vice President Al Gore, Inconvenient Truth, he talked about a number of years ago. And this CO2 levels are rising over 400 ppm now in the atmosphere, and they're warming up the Earth. Anyway, so a lot of the stuff I knew as a kid, it's no longer the same. In my generation, since I've been alive, I'll be 66 next month. A lot of changes. In the book of Daniel, it says in the end times that knowledge shall increase and men shall run to and fro. Well, in the early 1900s, the number one mode of transport was a horse. Well, now here we are. We've flown to the moon. They're talking about going to Mars. And so things have changed dramatically just in my lifetime. And not necessarily for the better. Just the population of the earth has almost tripled since I've been born. And so I remember about maybe 35 years ago going to Castlegar, the brilliant cultural center where the Doukhobors are. Dr. David Suzuki, the nature waste, came in and he gave a little bit of a talk, and I was there to listen to that. And he said we should aim for negative growth. And he explained how bacteria in a test tube were doubling each time, and they were getting to the point where the test tube was being filled. And so finally, before they doubled and filled the test tube, bacteria yelled out, "Hey, we found another test tube." Well, within 1 or 2 generations, at doubling that rate, the new test tube would be filled as well. So even if we found a new planet or something, the fact that we're increasing in population and resources are being depleted, and we can see what's happening in the world. The other thing that is disturbing is since 1970, 2/3 of the wildlife are gone from the planet. And they just said that 2020 was tied with 2016 as the hottest year on record for the world. And of course, the scientists want to keep it below 2 degrees pre-industrial growth, but they're at 1.45 now, so they're getting pretty close. But this warming that's happening, 19 of the last 20 years have been the warmest, by the way, since on record, since the 1840s, keeping record. But the thing is, what we're seeing is increasing of magnitude and also in frequency, more and more of them happening. Storms, very violent storms. One of the other things that was predicted was earthquakes. If you look at Matthew 24, Luke 21, and Mark 13, they talk about, Jesus said about some of the signs before he came into the world, again, his second coming. And I know some people joke, you're slower than the second coming of Christ. Well, I think he's getting closer. Anyway, so we don't know the day or the hour, so we're not setting times. But we should know the signs, because he said, if you see these things come to pass, lift up your heads, your redemption draweth nigh. So anyway, talking about these sort of things, the earthquakes is another one of the signs. So since 1950s, there have been 5 earthquakes on the Richter scale of over 9, up to 9.5. And if you look at 7 to 8, it's 10 times more powerful, and then 7 to 9 would be 100 times more powerful than one of 7. And 6 and 7 are pretty heavy-duty earthquakes. So if you get over 9, those are real killer quakes. So also the earthquakes are increasing in magnitude and also in frequency. So that's another sign. I don't believe Jesus is coming tomorrow, but I do believe that they talk about the birth pangs. This another thing is pestilence, and with the COVID, it qualifies as a worldwide pandemic. I know they had one in 1916 with the Spanish flu, but I think during that time, a lot of the people, they believed in God, and they had a different viewpoint than today. Today, another thing to talk about is the falling away or apostasy. So I don't think there's a lot of people in the world today that are followers of Jesus or believe. And so that's another sign that there will be a falling away. And I see a lot of the churches around here are closing up shop as well. So those are just a few of the signs. But it's good to reminisce and realize that you can have good memories. It's not all gloom and doom. And we know that when Jesus does come, he'll take us that have committed their lives to Him, home with Him again at the second coming. So, well, actually, to talk about the rapture and then coming back, and then, but anyway, we'll be caught up in the air and we'll be with the Lord forever, and absent from the body, present with the Lord. So, even if Jesus just tarries a little while longer, I think I'm getting kind of close to the end of my lifetime. Not that I want to go anytime soon. You know, people are living into their 90s and 100, but the Bible talks about three score and ten, and if out of might, 80 years. So if you're gone past that, you've done really well. But I don't want to linger too long. I just want to kind of touch bases with you. And I'll talk a little more about this if hopefully people are interested in sharing. And it's good to share, reminisce. You know, remember sitting there at the table with Arnie and Elvin and Calvin and eating that blueberry with the homemade bread. And, you know, it was good getting together a few years ago, about 5 years ago, or whatever it was, 6 years ago now, I guess, with our reunion. And I want to say this. I did not know my grandfather, Sam, my father's father, but I did know my great grandfather, John. And Alice and Larry and I had our picture taken with him because he was staying at Mac and Teresa's. We used to go and visit them too, and Jim Madigan and Mounties. And it was all fun when I was a kid. And so we had our picture taken with our great grandfather, John. And I just wanted to share that. And one final note was, used to love to go down and visit Uncle Clarence and Aunt Hazel too. And every time we went there, Uncle Clarence say, "Oh, here's my favorite nephew." Well, one time I was a little slow getting around the corner, and I might have been Alvin or Calvin. He said, "Oh, here's my favorite nephew." Well, he loved all of us, and that was a good thing. Back in those days, people got along and they enjoyed each other's company, and we got out in the woods and we did some hunting and fishing, and it was a good life. And I just wanted to share that too. So it's not all bad. Hopefully you'll have yourselves a wonderful day, and happy 2021, and see you next Sunday. Have a good day. Bye now.